Imagine waking up not in a bed, but in a state of perfect contentment. The room around you is seamless, edgeless, and bathed in a soft ambient light that seems to emanate from the very air. The walls are not walls in the traditional sense, but they are mirrors. But they don't just reflect your image, they reflect your deepest desires, instantly and flawlessly. You feel a pang of thirst, and a cool, crystalline glass of water materializes in your hand. A fleeting thought of a forgotten melody enters your mind, and it begins to play, softly, as if from 1,000 distant strings, perfectly matching the contours of your nostalgia. Every whim is answered, every belief is validated. The mirrors show you a version of yourself that is accomplished, admired, and utterly secure. This place, this state of being, is a perfect echo of your own consciousness. It is a world built exclusively for you, by you. There are no challenges, no conflicts, no dissenting voices. There is only the endless, comforting affirmation of the self. You have everything you could ever want. And in this paradise of catered reality, a terrifying question begins to stir, quietly at first, like a dissonant note in a flawless symphony. Why does this absolute freedom feel so much like a cage? This is the great paradox of the human condition, the philosophical nightmare hiding in plain sight. We spend our lives striving for a state of frictionless existence, a world where our will is met with no resistance. We build systems, technologies, and social structures designed to eliminate discomfort, to smooth over the rough edges of reality, to give us exactly what we want, when we want it. We crave the liberty to act without consequence, to believe without challenge, to exist without friction. Yet what if the very things we identify as the tools of our liberation are, in fact, the materials of our most sophisticated prison? What if the struggle, the resistance, the very thing we seek to eliminate is the only thing that proves we are truly free? Consider the nature of a choice. A genuine choice is not the selection of a preference from a pre-approved menu. It is a battle. It is the tension between what you want and what is right, between the easy path and the arduous one, between the comforting lie and the brutal truth. It is forged in the crucible of opposition. But in your mirrored room, where every desire is instantly gratified, is there any choice at all? If you never have to confront an opinion that isn't your own, is your belief a conviction or merely an echo? If you never face a reality that doesn't bend to your will, is your identity a self or merely a reflection? The room feels like the pinnacle of autonomy, but its perfect harmony is achieved by eliminating the very possibility of dissent, and therefore the very possibility of a meaningful decision. It has given you the world at the cost of yourself. You press your hand against the mirrored surface. It is warm, like skin. You stare into your own eyes, and for a fleeting moment the reflection seems to flicker, revealing not a contented soul, but a hollowed-out marionette dangling from strings of its own desires. The horror of it is not that you're being controlled by some external malevolent force. The horror is that the puppeteer is you. The prison has no warden, no guards, no bars, because the prisoner, the warden, and the architect are all one and the same. This is not a mere thought experiment. This is the silent, creeping crisis of the modern soul. We have built a world that increasingly resembles this mirrored room, a digital and psychological landscape that promises ultimate personalization, but delivers an invisible form of conformity. So how did we get here? How did we become the willing architects of our own gilded cages, mistaking the echo of our own voice for the sound of the universe? The answer lies buried deeper than you can imagine, in the hidden wiring of our minds and the ancient foundations of our societies. For this nightmare has roots, and to understand our struggle for freedom, we must first dare to unearth them.
To unearth the roots of this mirrored cage is to dig into the very soil of your own humanity. For we did not stumble into this prison by accident. We built it meticulously over millennia, guided by a blueprint encoded in our deepest fears and desires. This is not a conspiracy orchestrated by some shadowy cabal. It is a conspiracy without a conspirator, a trap sprung by the very nature of consciousness itself. The first and most profound root is a truth so burdensome that we have engineered entire realities to avoid it. The French existentialist Jean-Paul Sartre gave it a name. He said, "You are condemned to be free." This is not the celebratory freedom of political rhetoric. It is a terrifying, absolute freedom. It means there is no pre-written script, no human nature to fall back on, no cosmic destiny to guide your hand. You are nothing to begin with, and you are responsible not just for your actions, but for the very meaning of your existence. Every moment is a choice, and in that choice, you define humanity itself. The weight of that responsibility is crushing, an existential vertigo so profound that the human mind recoils from it. And so you engage in what Sartre called bad faith. You flee from the abyss of absolute freedom by pretending you are a thing, a static object with fixed properties. You tell yourself, "I am an anxious person," or "I am a logical thinker," or "I am just not the kind of person who does that." These labels, these definitions are the first bricks in the walls of your mirrored room. They are immensely comforting because they absolve you of the terrifying burden of infinite possibility. You choose not to choose. You build an identity out of habits and social roles, and then you treat that construction as an unchangeable fact. The mirrored room simply automates this process of self-deception. It reflects back to you the thing you've decided to be, making it feel solid, real, and inescapable. It is the ultimate act of bad faith, a sanctuary built to protect you from the terrible glory of your own boundless freedom. This escape is powered by an even deeper, more primal force, the one Sigmund Freud identified as the engine of the psyche, the pleasure principle. Your most fundamental drive is to seek pleasure and avoid pain or unpleasure. The Sartrean void of freedom is the ultimate unpleasure. It is the anxiety of uncertainty, the pain of total responsibility. Your mirrored room, in contrast, is the zenith of the pleasure principle. It is a frictionless environment of pure affirmation, a womb of neurological reward. Every desire met, every belief confirmed, is a small, satisfying hit of dopamine. Why would you ever leave? Here we find the chilling insight of Friedrich Nietzsche, who saw this trade-off with terrifying clarity. He argued that civilization itself is the process of taming the human animal, of trading our wild, chaotic will to power for the safety and predictability of the herd. We file down our own claws. We break our own spirit. We exchange the possibility of greatness for the promise of warmth. The mirrored room is the final victory of this taming. It is the perfectly regulated, climate-controlled stable for a creature that has forgotten it was once a lion. It offers you not the challenging mountainous path of Nietzsche's Übermensch, who creates their own values in defiance of the world, but the comfortable pre-paved path of the last man, who blinks in contentment, seeking only comfort and a long life. The terror lies in how these forces intertwine. The Sartrean fear of freedom makes you desperately seek the Freudian paradise of pleasure, which in turn makes you gladly accept the Nietzschean chains of domestication. You run from the terror of what you could be into the comfort of what you are told you are. And today, this ancient psychic mechanism has been supercharged by a new and insidious social order. The philosopher Byung-Chul Han observes that we no longer live in a disciplinary society, policed by external forces of thou shalt not. We have entered an achievement society, governed by the seductive whisper of thou canst. You are not an oppressed subject, but a project to be managed, an entrepreneur of the self. Your freedom is no longer about liberation from something. It is about the constant pressure to optimize, to perform, to achieve. You are your own taskmaster, your own panopticon, and your mirrored room has become your office. It endlessly reflects your curated successes, your filtered life, your personal brand, urging you to work harder, to be better, to be more productive. It transforms the very concept of freedom into another metric of performance. You are free to hustle, free to self-exploit, free to burn out, all while believing you are the master of your own destiny. The chains are no longer made of iron, but of ambition, validation, and the relentless, exhausting project of becoming a better version of yourself. This is the hidden problem. It is an architecture of control that feels like an expression of individuality. It is a system of confinement that masquerades as a journey of self-discovery. And this architecture is not just a philosophical abstraction. It is casting a long, dark shadow, silently shaping your reality, your society, and the very fabric of your life in ways you are only now beginning to perceive. The consequences of living inside this room are far greater than a mere loss of abstract freedom. They are real, they are pervasive, and they are silently hollowing out the world from the inside.
The consequences of this self-imprisonment are not written in fire across the sky. They are a quiet rot, a slow hollowing out of the self and society that is all the more dangerous for its subtlety. Living within the mirrored room does more than just coddle you. It fundamentally remakes you, neuron by neuron, belief by belief. It starts by weaponizing the very mechanics of your mind against you. Your brain is inherently lazy, hardwired with cognitive shortcuts to conserve energy. The most seductive of these is confirmation bias, the innate tendency to favor information that affirms your pre-existing beliefs. The mirrored room is confirmation bias made manifest, an environment engineered to eliminate all cognitive dissonance. Within its walls, you are always right. Your preferred political candidate is always virtuous. Your enemies always wicked. Your worldview is not a theory, but a self-evident truth. The result is the slow, painless atrophy of your critical faculties. The muscle of doubt, of questioning, of holding two opposing ideas in your mind at once withers away from disuse. Why engage in the difficult, energy-intensive work of critical thought when the universe itself seems to bend to your convictions? Neurologically, the effect is even more alarming. The constant low-grade stream of validation, the affirmation, the instant gratification, the frictionless existence creates a dependency. It's a perpetual dopamine drip, rewiring your brain's reward circuits. You are being conditioned like a lab animal in a Skinner box, pressing the lever of your own opinion and receiving the food pellet of affirmation. Over time, your tolerance for ambiguity, for complexity, for delayed gratification plummets. You become neurologically impatient, demanding simpler answers, faster rewards, and clearer enemies. Deep focus becomes a chore, and the sustained, frustrating work of genuine creativity or intellectual discovery becomes nearly impossible. You are being cognitively and neurologically downgraded, transformed into a creature that can only survive within the stimulating, affirming confines of the cage you've built. Perhaps the most devastating personal consequence is the death of empathy. True empathy is not a warm, fuzzy feeling. It is the profoundly difficult and imaginative act of stepping outside your own consciousness and inhabiting the reality of another. It requires the acknowledgement that another person's experience is as real and valid as your own, even and especially when it contradicts yours. But inside a room that only reflects you, the other ceases to be a sovereign being. They are flattened into a caricature, a projection of your own psyche. They are either a supporting character in your narrative or an obstacle to be dismissed. This breeds a profound narcissistic loneliness that masquerades as hyperconnection. You may be linked to millions, but you are truly relating to no one but the endless, comforting, and ultimately suffocating reflection of yourself. When you multiply this personal decay by billions, the societal consequences come in terrifying focus. A world of individuals locked in their own self-validating realities is a world where a shared foundation for truth disintegrates. We are witnessing this disintegration in real time. It is the source of our toxic, gridlocked politics, where discourse is no longer about persuasion, but about tribal warfare between mutually incomprehensible realities. It is the engine of our post-truth landscape, where scientific consensus can be dismissed as just another opinion, and where conspiracy theories flourish because they offer a more emotionally satisfying narrative than complex, messy reality. We are no longer a society that disagrees on the solutions to our problems. We are a collection of tribes that cannot even agree on what the problems are. We are losing the common ground upon which any civilization must stand. This unseen process creates the illusion of frantic progress while producing a profound stagnation. We refine the mirrors, making them higher definition. We improve the algorithms, making them more exquisitely sensitive to our whims. We innovate endlessly within the cage, making it more entertaining, more comfortable, more efficient. We celebrate this as human advancement. But it is a purely horizontal movement. We get better and better at serving our existing desires, but we lose the capacity for vertical movement, the capacity to question those desires in the first place. We have become masters of the means, but have forgotten how to question the ends. Our society becomes a frantic churn of activity that goes nowhere, a technological marvel devoted to spiritual and philosophical inertia. This is the ultimate trap, a system that feels like freedom, a process of decay that feels like growth, a prison that feels like home. It is a self-perpetuating loop, a psychological feedback circuit closing on itself. The more hollowed out you become, the more you crave the room's affirmation. The more fractured society becomes, the more you retreat into your personalized bubble of safety. The cage perfects itself with your every interaction. The walls are closing in, but they are not made of stone. They are made of you. Given this perfect design, escape seems not just difficult, but a logical impossibility. How do you break out of a prison when the bars are forged from the very architecture of your own mind?
You stand before the perfect, shimmering walls of your prison, and you feel the crushing weight of its flawless design. It feeds on your psychology. It is powered by your neurology. It is reinforced by your culture. To fight it seems impossible, like punching the air. But here lies the first, most radical realization, the key that was in your pocket all along. You have been trying to break the wrong thing. You have been looking for an exit, a way to shatter the mirrors and escape into some imagined, pure outside. But the way out is not out. It is through. The path to freedom is not the destruction of the cage, but the conscious, deliberate, and radical transformation of your relationship to it. The nightmare has shown you the nature of your chains. Now you will learn to become your own blacksmith. The first act of this liberation is a declaration of war against comfort. You must consciously and deliberately choose friction. The mirrored room has trained you to be a dopamine addict, seeking the easiest, most pleasurable path. Your rebellion begins by choosing the opposite. Pick up the book written by the thinker you despise and read it with a genuine desire to understand their reality. Listen to the music that feels abrasive and alien to your ears until you can locate its internal logic. Turn off the endless scroll and sit in silence, allowing the uncomfortable static of your own untended thoughts to rise to the surface. This is not self-punishment. It is cognitive resistance training. You are intentionally starving the part of your brain that craves easy affirmation and feeding the part that thrives on challenge. You are rebuilding your atrophied neurological muscles of focus, patience, and resilience. You are teaching yourself to find a deeper, more satisfying pleasure not in the answer, but in the struggle of the question. You are learning to love the taste of the bitter medicine that heals you. The second act is to weaponize the mirror against itself. For centuries, the room has been a tool of affirmation. Now you must make it a tool of interrogation. You must become Socrates in your own mind, meeting every reflection with a relentless why. When the mirror reflects a cherished belief, you must not nod in agreement, but ask, how did I come to believe this? What evidence contradicts it? What would I believe if I were born in a different time or place? What am I afraid of losing if I let this belief go? This is the art of self-interrogation. It is the process of peeling back the layers of your conditioned identity. You are not destroying yourself, you are excavating yourself. You begin to see that the self, the room reflects, is not a solid, immutable statue, but a story. A story written by your fears, your desires, and your culture. And the moment you realize it's a story, you realize you can become the author. You can pick up the pen and write a new chapter. This leads to the third and most powerful act, the great paradoxical secret of those who have truly been free throughout history. Freedom is not the absence of limits, it is the conscious and deliberate choice of your constraints. The monk who enters a silent monastery is not less free. She has traded a million trivial, distracting choices for one profound, meaningful constraint that liberates her soul. The scientist who devotes her life to the rigid laws of physics finds in those very laws a boundless universe to explore. Henry David Thoreau did not escape to Walden Pond to live a life without rules. He went there to shed the meaningless imposed rules of society and adopt a simpler, more intentional set of constraints that allowed him to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life. This is your path. You must reject the room's offer of infinite shallow choices. You must turn to the mirror, and instead of asking, "What do I want?" you must ask, "What is worthy of my devotion?" And then you must choose your own beautiful cage, a cage built not of unconscious desire and fear, but of conscious values and purpose. It might be the discipline of mastering a craft, the demanding ethics of a moral code, the unconditional love for a family, the unwavering commitment to a cause greater than yourself. These chosen constraints do not limit you, they focus you. They give your freedom a shape, a direction, and a meaning. They channel the chaotic energy of your will to power into a force capable of creating cathedrals. You stop being a passive consumer of a catered reality and become an active creator of a meaningful life. This is the source of your power. It was never about escaping the cage. It was about realizing you have the right to choose its design. And as you begin this process, as you start to live by this new, terrifying and exhilarating principle, something remarkable happens. You look into the mirror, and for the first time, you sense that something is looking back that is not a reflection. You are on the cusp of the final, most powerful realization of all.